Good morning to all of you students. Today we are in third session actually. So, in second session we have reviewed these things. Probably you can recollect we classified algorithms into two categories. One category is called iterative category and another is called recursive algorithms. In iterative category, what we have done is we have taken the basic operation, we have seen how many times it is getting executed. Based on that we perform the time complexity analysis. Then we assigned a proper symbol like big bow or omega or theta. Based on that we have performed the average case, worst case and best case analysis of all these algorithms. Then in the last session we also reviewed how the time complexity analysis should be carried out for recursive algorithms. So, these are the review items. So, we discussed about substitution method. So, substitution method is of two types. One is known as the forward substitution and another is known as the backward substitution method. And we had seen how to solve some simple algorithmic analysis using this substitution method. And also we discussed in the last session in a very detailed manner about the recurrence equation. So, probably you can recollect I was telling you that every algorithm will generate some sort of a sequence. By a careful study of the sequence we can find the basic formula that governs that particular sequence, and based on that we can find the recurrence equations. For example, in Fibonacci series we have seen that T of n is equal to T of n minus 1 plus T of n minus 2. Then I was telling you that by bringing everything to one side, that is T of n minus T of n minus 1 minus T of n minus 2 equal to 0 becomes a recurrence equation. Probably you can recollect that we had stated that if RHS is equal to 0, then it means it is a homogeneous equations. So, we have to form the characteristic equation. The highest power of the characteristic equation is determined by the order of the recurrence equation. Then we have to solve those equations, and you can see we will get the roots for those equations. Then I stated two theorems. One theorem is the solutions may be distinct. If it is distinct, then your solution will take a form something like T of n equal to C1 into R power R1 power n plus C2 R2 power n, like that it goes on, and this is what we call as a solution that is contributed by the roots of the equations. This is one category, and these C1, C2 etc. are all constants, and we had seen that by substituting the value of 0, 1, 2 for n, we get the initial condition. Sometimes the initial condition is also given, also the condition is also given like n is greater than 2. That is why we call this as the conditional complexity, asymptotic complexity of the given algorithm. And if we solve those kind of equations, then we are getting the solutions, and solutions for C1, C2 etc. And if we substitute back into the equation, we get the solution, and based on the solution the important thing is we can analyze whether the algorithm is a solvable algorithm or not. So, last class we discussed about how to carry out all the task. Then we also discussed about the non-homogeneous category. Non-homogeneous means the RHS is not going to be 0. So, that means we had seen how to convert that into a proper characteristic equation, and again theorem 1 and 2 is applicable. Theorem 2, as you know very well, clearly states that if the roots are not distinct, that means if the root is having the multiplicity, say for example, if I get a root something like 2 comma 2 comma 2, means its root 2 with a multiplicity of 3. So, that means the contribution will be something like n into R2 power n plus n square into R2 R3 power n, like that it goes. So, we had seen how to solve this and how to use those theorems to get the solution for all these equations. Then we have also seen about the iteration method. Iteration method is similar to your substitution, but only thing is it is involving the recursive tree. So, that means we have to generate the recursive tree and then we have to take a sum of all the leaves, actually based on that we will tell the behavior of that particular algorithm. And finally, I told you about the Master's theorem also. Master's theorem is applicable in a limited sense. So, that means uh, suppose if your algorithm is taking the template something like T of n equal to some a into T of n by 2 kind of thing. In that case, you can directly apply this Master's theorem where you can substitute the values and based on that you can apply the complexity analysis. And also we discussed about some of the algorithms like linear search, etc. Please recollect, we were telling you that linear search is a problem where we are searching for an element and we are starting from the first element and then we are progressing searching for the key, and if it is available then we are reporting success, otherwise we are reporting the failure. So, this is what we are going to see today, that is we are going to see something called the design methodologies. Design methodology means it is a way of solving the problems, it is a strategy. So, there are many strategies that are available for us known as the divide and conquer strategy, greedy approach, dynamic programming, backtracking, branch and bound techniques. So, you can see your syllabus contains most of these design techniques. So, the relevancy of these design techniques is like this. Suppose a problem is given to you, you have to evaluate which design technique is better to your particular problem, and based on that you have to design your algorithms. Let me give you a layman's story. Suppose let us say I am giving you a telephone directory. I am asking you to search for a particular name like Kadir. So, how will you search it? Will you start searching from your page number 1? Definitely not, because if you keep on searching from page 1 to page n entry wise, it will take lot of time. So, this is what the linear search is all about. Already we have seen that the complexity of that particular algorithm is order of n. So, you can see very well as n becomes larger, so naturally your complexity analysis becomes very difficult. So, that is why we are going for some strategies. So, strategy means in telephone directory we employ some sort of a strategy like this. We pick up a page randomly and we assume that every page is indexed by a character. Then we are comparing our key with that particular index. Suppose let us say I am picking one page which contain entry like C, means I am comparing my Kadir Q with that C. I know Q is greater than C. So, that means I will go to the later on part of the book. So, that means whatever the initial portions are, I will not see at all. So, by performing like this I will try to locate that particular name. So, this sort of strategy is what we call as the divide and conquer strategy. Like that there are so many strategies available, and the purpose of this particular course is that by going through all these algorithmic design techniques, it will make you as a better programmer. So, that means given a problem, you should know which strategy comes very handy, and based on that you can design your algorithms. So, let us discuss more about the divide and conquer algorithm. So, this is how the strategy proceeds. If the problem size is small, then you will solve the problem directly. Otherwise, we split the problem into two sub problems with equal sizes. So, that means if you are having a problem having a lesser input size, means you can solve that by means of the conventional means. Otherwise, you will try to split the problem into two or more sub problems, preferably having the equal sizes. Then Recursively you will try to solve these sub problems, 2 or more sub problems by using the same algorithm, and you will try to merge the solutions of the sub problems to get the solution of your original problem. So, this is how your block diagram of your divide and conquer will look like. So, you can see very well there are 2 steps that are involved. The first step is called the division process or partitioning process, where you are trying to partition your problem which is having size n instances into 2 sub problems, and each sub problems is having a size of n by 2. Then you are trying to find solution for each sub problems, and you are trying to combine that to give the solution of your original problem. Normally this sort of strategy leads to a recursive algorithms. So, recursive algorithm is a great boon for a programmer because it will reduce our coding effort. So, this is the control structure of how a divide and conquer algorithm will look like. You can see very well. Function divide and conquer, I am taking a problem, and if x is sufficiently small, then I am straight away solving it directly. Otherwise, I am trying to divide the problem x into smaller sub instances x1, x2 up to xk. So, for each sub problems, that is nothing but for I equal to 1 to k do, then I am trying to apply the same divide and conquer approach for all these sub problems. Then I am combining all these solutions to give the final solution of the problem. So, you can see the control structure has got 2 steps, one is partitioning and another is combining all the solutions to give the original solutions. So, the advantage of this control structure is that if you identify that your problem comes under the divide and conquer strategy, immediately this control structure can be written. So, this is a great advantage because many times given a problem you do not know how to write your main program. So, if you know the control structure and if you know that your algorithm comes under this particular category, then the main program is more or less your control structure only, and after that you can bother about your sub functions which bothers about the specificity of that particular algorithm. Lots of examples we can quote as an example of divide and conquer strategy. In sorting you have merge sort, quick sort, etc. These are included in your syllabus. Binary tree traversal is a good example of divide and conquer strategy. Binary search is an example of divide and conquer. So, this is definitely better than your linear search because this is having a logarithmic complexity, and there are other problems also available like multiplication of very large integers, matrix multiplication algorithm, and closest pair and convex hull algorithms. In your syllabus, the techniques that are included are merge sort, quick sort, binary search. Then these are the things. So, we will discuss more about how to solve these problems using this divide and conquer approach. Before proceeding further, so let us try to see the context where these problems are applicable. The context is very simple. The problem should be decomposable into sub problems, only then you can apply this particular strategy. That means parallelization should be possible. So, parallelization means I can give you a layman's story. Say for example, I have 100 papers to correct. I have 4 assistants. So, what I can do is I can try to divide my 100 papers into 4 bunches. Every bunch will have 25 papers. I can ask every assistant to correct it, and after corrections I can collect it back. So, this task is called parallelization. So, all the persons can work simultaneously at the same time. So, that means you can see very well my job is exactly divided by 4. So, if I have more numbers, then the parallelization will be more effective. So, only if the problems are decomposable in nature like this, I can apply the divide and conquer strategy, otherwise it is not possible. In some cases it is possible where I need to find sum of an array. Say for example, I have an array of 1000 numbers. I can try to divide this into 5 or 6 subparts or more subparts. I can add everything. Finally, the grand sum is going to be the sum of all these subsums. This is possible. In some cases, this is not possible, where say for example, if I want to find the mean or median of a particular array, then this sort of sub problem approach will not work. So, in short, I can summarize that whenever you feel that the problem is suitable for this sort of parallelization, you can definitely consider applying this particular technique. The complexity analysis of these divide and conquer generally becomes an equation like this: T of n is equal to, you are trying to divide the instance into equal parts preferably. So, that means it will become 2 into T of n by 2. You can see very well your instance becomes exactly half. Then S of n is nothing but the time for splitting. So, you need to spend some time to split the instances. So, S of n is the time for splitting, and to combine the solutions to get the grand solution requires some time, that is going to be your M of n. So, this is going to be the time for merging, and B and C are constants. So, in short, most of the recurrence equations will be like this only. Say for example, for binary search, the recursive equation will be something like T of n is equal to 2t n by 2 plus some k. We can say that k represents the splitting time as well as the combination time, and generally most of the authors will consider that to be a constant, because it takes some time which is a scalar. So, the purpose of most of the people is to analyze your T of n equal to 2t n by 2, and based on that the complexity analysis of that particular algorithm can be specified. There are two variations available in divide and conquer strategy. It is better if you note these kind of things. The first variation is called decrease and conquer. For example, in divide and conquer, I told you that the instance n should be divided into 2 exact half, n by 2, n by 2. In many of the situations, it is not possible to have a subproblem with exact half of the instance. So, in that case, you have to consider a variation like this, where you will have some smaller instance, you will find solution, you will extend that solution to your original problem, and this can be implemented as a top down or bottom up approach. So, this sort of thing is what we call as a inductive or incremental approach. So, everything is exactly similar to your divide and conquer, because this is just a variation of the technique only, but the real difference comes here. So, that means your division leads not exactly to exact half, but rather it is either decreased by a constant, normally it is 1. Good examples of this particular technique is insertion sort and graph traversal algorithms. These are available in your syllabus as unit 5. We will discuss about these algorithms at that point of time. So, where you can see very well the differences between the sub problems is unity and decrease by a constant factor. So, that means generally it is half, but it need not always have to be, and it may be a variable decrease also. Good example is Euclid algorithm and selection by partition. This is one variations. Another variation of divide and conquer is transform and conquer. Sometimes the original problem may not be easily solvable, but by changing the representation of that particular thing, the problem may become very easy. So, in that case I will go for that kind of variation where I will take the problem, I will transform that to another problem, I will try to solve that problem, and finally the solution I will get it back to the original context. I can give you a small example. I want to add, say for example 15,000 and 18,000. Instead of doing it in a straightforward manner, what I can do is I can change that 15,000 into a scientific notation, 15 into 10 power 3. 18,000 I can convert to 18 into 10 power 3. So, 10 power 3 is constant. So, if I want to add these two, all I have to do is I have to add only this 15 and 18. So, in this particular manner I can apply the variation of divide and conquer as transform and conquer also. So, in short, the greatest challenge for the students are that given a problem you have to identify a suitable technique. Normally this requires lot of time, that is why we call this problem solving as art of problem solving, but unfortunately we engineers cannot deal with art. So, we need to convert this into some sort of principles. So, that is why we are trying to convert all these things into some sort of a principles, and all these principles only are captured as techniques or strategies. In short, the divide and conquer with its variations will be able to solve many problems. So, the first problem we will take for discussion is binary search. So, the assumptions of this problem is that we will have an array. So, we will have key to search for. So, we will use divide and conquer strategy. So, that means two parts we have to see. One is we have to divide the array into exact half or at least near to that. Then we will try to find the presence of the key actually, and then we will try to combine the solutions finally to give the grand solution of the problem. So, the strategy is listed out as points here. The first point is binary search algorithms assumes that the items in the array being searched are sorted. This is one major requirement of binary search. So, that means it assumes that the items are already in the sorted order, then only it is possible. Say for example, if I am asking you to search for a name in a telephone book, imagine you are able to search by means of index because everything is sorted. Suppose if the items are not sorted, you cannot find what exactly your expected thing. So, that means unless this condition is fulfilled, you cannot perform any operations. Second thing is binary search begins at the middle of the array. So, initially you have your starting point, you have your last point, you can find your middle, then you will check whether your item is equal to this middle. Suppose if your item is less than what is being in the middle, then you will go to the first half, otherwise you will go to the second half. By repeating this process again and again, so repeating again and again only, mathematically it is nothing but a recursion, right. So, we are calling the function again and again, that is why divide and conquer always leads to the recursive solution. Then this process keeps on continuing till we get a situation where your key becomes the middle element. In that case, the search is going to be your success. You will report it. You can even report where exactly the element is present, that is the index of your middle element. Otherwise, you will report that number what you are searching for is not available in that particular array. So, you can take this particular example. So, you have an array. So, you have a list which is indexed from 0 to 11. There are total 12 elements. Say for example, if the array is having a number, sometimes it may be possible to split the array into exact half. In that case, what you can do is always you can find start plus end divided by 2. So, that will give you the middle portions. Sometimes it may not be possible to get the exact middle. In that case, what normally you will do is you will either apply the truncation operation. So, that means if your start plus end divided by 2 gives 6.5, either you can go for 6. In that case, you are truncating that number. So, that is called floor operation, or you can round off that as 7. So, you can perform anything, but as long as it remains consistently same throughout the entire process, there is no problem at all. So, this is what your problem looks like. So, we have to find the middle element, middle equal to left plus right by 2. I am assuming that left is your first element. Normally, the array starts with an index of 0 and right is going to be the last element of your array. Many authors may use words like start, end, no problem, you can use anything because it is your jargon only. The algorithm should be generic, you can have your own style, but only thing is whatever you do, whatever assumptions you are making should be consistent. So, left plus right divided by 2, and depending on the situation you can go for floor or you can round off, and that will give you the middle positions. So, you can see how the segment is going to look like. You are calculating the middle, then item is what you are searching for, you are checking your item is greater than middle. If it is middle, that means your item what you are searching for is in the second half of the array. So, that means now your left should be reassigned as middle plus 1. So, that means you will go to the second part of your array. Suppose if your item is less than your list of mid, so that means your item is present in the first half. So, that means you will reassign your right as middle minus 1. So, this will go in a loop actually till the condition that your left is less than or equal to right. So, once it violates this particular condition, once your left becomes greater than right means then you have to exit only. So, in this particular algorithm, it may happen that what you are searching for may be available. In that case, item is equal to list of mid. In that case, you will report the index also and then you will return true. Otherwise, suppose what you are searching for is not available, then you will report false. In short, you can see very well, you can contrast this with your main control structure. You can compare it well now. Suppose if the number of instances are very low, for example, I am given an array which is having only 3 numbers. In that case, binary search may not be appropriate. So, that means the instance is very small. So, that means I can solve it by the conventional means. So, divide and conquer becomes relevant only when the instances are very large. Suppose if I am having 10,000 numbers, perhaps this technique is better because this will lead to a better algorithm, right. So, in that case only these things becomes more sense. So, this is a numerical example which I have taken to demonstrate the binary search. You can see very well you have an array. So, what I am searching for is 18. So, you can see very well you have 9 elements. So, if you calculate your low plus high divided by 2, so it is your 0 plus 8 divided by 2, your middle comes to 5, you are rounding off, then you are searching for 18. So, 18 is greater than 5. So, that means what you are searching for is in the second half of your array. So, now your low points to 18, high remains the same, again you are calculating the middle element. So, now middle points to 21, what you are searching for is 18, 18 is less than 21. So, that means you are readjusting your high, now high points to 21, low as well as the middle points to 18. Now, you can see the algorithm, if your item is equal to mid, then report success. So, that means your item is available. So, this is how you will proceed. So, for your convenience I will just demonstrate it again. Right. So, you can see very well only 3 comparisons are required. So, this is the recording of those things, first iteration, second iteration, third iteration. So, in this example I am searching for the element 89. Again you can see very well the array is indexed from 0 to 11, first mid is 5, second mid is 8, third mid is 10. You can use this technique with respect to the characters also, no problem. For example, you can take this particular array where strings are there. So, I am searching for an element zebra. So, you can see very well, first 5, second 8, third 9, fourth middle is 10. So, you can see very well the item is not there, because by the time your high becomes less than your low. So, that means you have to return false. Second is an example where you are trying to find fish. You can see very well fish is there. So, first time middle is 5, second 8, then 6. So, you can see very well how the analysis goes on. 11 items means 4 tries. What will happen if the array has got 32 items? First item the middle will be 16, next time 8, 4, 2, 1. So, that means only 5 tries. What will happen if the array has got more number of items? For example, 250 items. You can see middle 125, 63, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. You can see very well in the 8th try itself you are able to find relations. Similarly, 512 items. So, you can see now that the hidden relation is the tries are the logarithmic of the numbers. For example, the list of 11 takes only 4 tries. 32 means it is 2 power 5. 250 means approximately it is equivalent to 2 power 8. 512 means it is 2 power 9. So, approximately you can see very well the number of tries that we require to search for an item in an array is an logarithmic thing. So, definitely this is better than your linear search. because in linear search, suppose if you have an array of 512 elements, if you want to search for a particular element, you require 512 comparisons to find whether an element is there or not in the worst case. But whereas in binary search, you can see very well using just 8 tries, you can say whether your item is present or not. This is the superiority of the binary search algorithms. So, the real advantage comes when n becomes larger and larger. So, in the last review itself we had seen that we are interested more in the magnitude, order growth of functions. We do not want to analyze an algorithm with a smaller number of instances. So, that is why I said, say for example, if you want to buy an elephant and goldfish, the cost function is cost of buying elephant plus cost of buying goldfish. The cost of goldfish is very negligible. So, that means you can see very well the overall process is controlled by the cost of the elephant only. So, the cost of any searching or sorting algorithm is governed by comparisons. So, in linear search, as n becomes larger and larger, correspondingly your number of comparisons also becomes increasing. But whereas if you take a binary search, you can see very well the relationship between the number of elements and the comparison is logarithmic. So, that is the advantage of this. And how this advantage is achieved? Because of divide and conquer strategy only. So, we call this as log n efficiency. So, normally in computer science the base is always 2. So, it is log 2 log n base 2 time, and we can prove this by means of the recurrence also. So, you can see very well this example we had seen in the last review is nothing but the recurrence equation of your binary tree only, right. So, that means your T of n, you are splitting your n into exact half, that is T of n by 2, and you are making one comparison with respect to your middle. So, plus 1. So, you are saying that for n is greater than 1, n is power of 2, you are putting all sort of restrictions. Initial condition is 1, because at least one element should be there for making searching. You can solve this by means of the substitution, right. So, can you able to recollect this? So, T 2 will becomes T n by 2, that is T 2 by 2 plus 1, you can see it is 2, T 4, because n is power of 2 we are saying. So, that is why we are not putting T 3, it becomes T 4, T 8, T 16. You can see very well the relationship between your LHS and RHS. T 2 equal to 2, T 4 is 3, T 8 is 4. So, that means you can see very well the RHS is nothing but the logarithm of your LHS. So, that is the reason why you are calling this as T of n equal to log n plus 1. In other words, this is going to be the logarithmic things. So, the advantage is it is more efficient than your linear search. So, you can see very well in the graph, if you try to plot graph for different values of n, you can see for smaller instances these will appear to be similar, but if n becomes very larger, you can see suddenly there is a divergence between the curves, and suddenly you realize that your logarithmic algorithm is far more better. The disadvantage of binary search is that only one advantage you can state, that is binary search requires your elements to be in the sorted order. So, that is one big restriction, otherwise the algorithm will not work. So, we will have a small break, and after that we will continue our discussion about divide and conquer. Thank you very much. I welcome back to the session actually. So, in the last phase actually we were discussing about the divide and conquer. I was telling you how these principles of division and conquering helps to solve various problems. We discussed about the binary search also. So, now we will continue our discussion. We will try to solve some more problems that are coming under this particular category. One good example we can say is a merge sort. Sorting is a very important class of applications which we are using in our real world many times. Say for example, I may have to sort the names of my attendance register. So, I may have to sort the ID number of various employees. So, these are certain realistic tasks. So, for that there are many algorithms that are available. So, merge sort is a very popular algorithm and it is also a classical example of the divide and conquer. If you see the control structure of merge sort, it exactly looks like this. We have to divide the array into two subarrays. Each subarray will have number of elements n by 2, then conquer it. Suppose if the number is too small, as we have seen in the control structure, we can use other things also, but if the number is sufficiently large, you can use a recursive method, then you can combine the results of each subarray to get the sorting of your original thing. So, you can see very well two phases are prominently evident, one is partitioning stage and another is combination stage. So, you can see this particular example. I have an array which has got these numbers. The first process is division. So, that means I am trying to divide my array into two equal half. Then I am sorting each subarray. Then I am trying to combine these two array to get the sorted array. Let me explain all the things subsequently. This is how it proceeds. I have a big problem. So, I have 8 numbers. So, in divide and conquer strategy, I am trying to divide that array into subarray having 4 elements each. Then I am trying the subarray having 4 elements into 2 subarrays having 2 elements each, and then separately. Then comes the merging process. During the merging process, what I am trying to do is I am trying to combine based on the order requirement. Then you can see very well how that merging is taking place. 27 10 I am comparing and I am putting that in the required order, that is 10 27. Then in the next stage I am combining these two arrays to give an array of 4 elements, then later on I am trying to combine these two things to give the resultant. Fine, let us take a numerical example and then we will try to see how these things are really working. Kindly take this example. So, I am trying to divide. So, you can see my main algorithm is exactly similar to my binary search only, there is no difference. So, if low less than high, find mid, then merge sort low to mid and mid plus 1 to high. So, these procedures are recursive procedures. So, that means every subarray is being recursively solved and I am trying to combine everything by means of the process called merge to give the resultant. So, you can see very well more or less this control structure is exactly similar to your binary search only. In binary search you are ignoring one part of the array totally because your problem was searching, but here the problem is sorting. So, that means you have to sort both the arrays, right. So, this is the thing. So, you are sorting it and then you are merging it. Fine. How the merging process is being done? So, let us take this particular numerical example. Suppose if I want to merge these two array to give the resultant, what I will try to do is I will take one element of this array, another element of another array, and then I will try to find which is the smaller one, and the smaller one I will try to put into the resultant array. This is how the merging process is being carried out. You can see this particular example. In the first half, smallest is A, in the second array the smallest is H, smaller is A. I am putting it. You can see very well the pointer moves actually. Now, I have to compare G and H. G is smaller. Then I have to compare L and H. H is smaller. You can see very well now the pointer now moves on to the next element. Now, the comparisons is between L and I. You can see smaller is L, O and M, O and S, R and S. Now, you can see what happens now is the first array is totally exhausted. So, what I will try to do is I will try to copy the remaining elements of the second array straight away. This is acceptable because we are assuming that during the merging process the sub arrays are already in the sorted order. Now, you can see how the pseudo code of this particular merge sort is looking like. Imagine this is a sorting problem. So, that means you have only one array. So, for your convenience what you are trying to do is you are trying to copy your array elements 0 to n by 2 minus 1 to another array B. Then from n by 2 to n minus 1 to another array C. So, that means you are trying to create an additional two arrays B as well as C. So, that means these are called auxiliary arrays. You can avoid creation of extra memory by manipulation of pointer itself. It is called in place sort. So, if we take the space complexity, the in place sort is better, but if the space is not a constraint, you can use these sort of algorithms also. Then you use merge sort of your B array, then C array, then you are trying to combine this by means of the merging process. So, your merging process, as the numerical example said, involves setting of pointers, then you are checking which is smaller, and the smallest element goes to the resultant, and the appropriate pointers are adjusted, and finally, we are checking whether the array is exhausted or not. If the array is exhausted, then the remaining elements of the another array is copied straight away to the resultant. Then after the resultant is obtained, we copy that back into the original thing, that gives you the solutions. So, the time complexity of merge sort is depending on the number of elements of your sub array. Suppose if you say that P is the length of the first array, Q is the length of your second array, then the complexity analysis is going to be order of P plus Q. So, that means approximately it is order of n. Okay. So, let me illustrate this by means of this particular example, again merging process 5 and 3. You can see 23 and 25, 23, 54 and 25, 54 and 75. You see, first array is exhausted. So, you copy the remaining things to this resultant. So, putting everything together, this numerical example can demonstrate. I am trying to divide the array into 2 equal half. You can see carefully how the merging is done. So, now I am combining these two, then finally, I am combining these two. So, if you want, I can go back and I can illustrate partitioning process. Then merging process. If you see the complexity analysis of this algorithm, you can see it goes like this. It is going to be W of n, it can be T of n also, no problem, it is our convenience only. So, W of n is equal to, we are trying to divide into exact half. So, that means 2 sub arrays you have. So, it becomes 2 into W of n by 2 plus merging requires n minus 1 comparisons. So, for n is greater than 1 and n is power of 2, initial condition is 0. So, you can see very well how we are able to derive the complexity analysis. T2, that is for sorting you require at least 2 numbers. So, T2 is a starting point, T2 equal to 2 T 2 by 2 plus 2 minus 1. You can see very well it becomes 1. T4, you can see very well it becomes 5. T8, it becomes 17. T16, it is 49. So, you can see some sort of a relationship exists. T2 equal to 1, T4 is 5, T8 is 17, T16 is 49. So, what is the governing formula which connects these two? If you see exactly, it is something like a logarithmic equation only. So, that is why you say it is a logarithmic algorithms. It involves n elements. So, you say this is order of n log n. So, you can take this and you can solve using the recurrence equation also. Last session we had reviewed this problem, you can go through that and you can see very well that the complexity analysis leads to an logarithmic one. The advantage of this algorithm is that The traditional sorting algorithm etc. requires n square comparisons. So, insertion sort is order of n square, selection sort is order of n square. If you compare this algorithm with those algorithms, you can definitely say that merge sort is better because this is order of n log n, right. So, that is the governing relationship between these sequences. So, using this approach you can solve plenty of problems also. Another problem that is given in your syllabus is finding the maximum and minimum of an array. So, let us try to discuss that problem. So, all of you know what that problem is. You have an array, you have to find the maximum and minimum. So, all of you know how to find that using the conventional means. So, now we will try to see how to apply the divide and conquer strategy for that. So, minimum is the first order statistics, maximum is the nth order statistics. So, the conventional algorithm that you will write will look like this. Your array is A, n elements are there, your problem is finding maximum and minimum. So, initially you will assume that your min is going to be A of n, then you will start a loop from 2 to n, then you will make comparison, and whenever the minimum is greater than your A of I, then you will swap it, then you will return min. So, how many comparisons that are required for this? You can see very well n minus 1 comparisons are required, because your array is indexed from 0. So, it is 0 to n minus 1. So, for finding minimum you require n minus 1 comparisons. You can modify this algorithm in a slighter manner by performing the maximum also along with this, but even then your complexity analysis is again says that it is going to be an algorithm of n only. So, when n becomes too large, you can see very well this algorithm is not very optimal. So, let us go for the divide and conquer strategy. So, what we will try to do is that again we will use the concept of low, high, we will find the middle element. So, using that we will partition the array into 2 equal half, then we will try to find the maximum and minimum of each sub array. So, we will have maximum corresponding to the first half, maximum corresponding to the second half. Then we will compare these two to give the maximum and minimum of the whole array. So, this sort of approach is what we call as the divide and conquer array. So, you can see very well how it proceeds. Middle you are calculating, then it becomes up to mid you have one subarray, from mid plus 1 to j another subarray, then you are finding the maximum and minimum, then you are comparing this maximum of both the array, minimum of both the array to give the resultant. So, this is example you can see. So, I am having an array. So, what I am trying to do is that I am trying to divide this into 2 half. in the first half I have 29, 14, 15 and 1. In the second half I have 6, 10, 32, 12. Again I am trying to divide this into two sub half, 29 and 14, 15 and 1. So, I am finding the maximum here and I am passing here. So, 29 is the maximum, 15 here. Then I am comparing 29 with 15. So, that is coming here. Similarly, here you can see very well your maximum is percolating to this. Then I am comparing your 29 with 32 to give the resultant. So, the greatest advantage of this particular methodology is that now you can see very well in this particular tree with 3 levels we are able to find the solutions. This is definitely better than your traditional approach where you have to perform more number of comparisons to find the resultant, that is at least you require n minus 1 comparisons. So, the time complexity analysis of this algorithm is given like this. You can see very well it is again similar to your binary search. You are trying to divide the problem into half. So, you have two equal half now. So, 2 t n by 2 plus 1 comparisons. If you are talking about finding the maximum alone. Okay. So, you can see very well you have an equation, you can assume n equal to 2 power k. You can see very well by substitution method, in the first level it becomes 2 t n by 2, next level it becomes 4 2 t n by 4 plus 1. So, you can see very well in this manner it progresses. This is nothing but the substitution method. Finally, you can see very well we are getting a sequence something like 1 plus 2 plus 4, it goes up to 2 k minus 1. So, you can see very well it is equal to 2 k minus 1, n equal to 2 power k, therefore, n minus 1. Continuing our discussion, we can also see how quicksort also employs the same principle in order to give the better results. Quicksort. Quicksort was proposed by Hoare in 1962. It is a divide and conquer algorithm. So, it sorts in place, that means it is not creating any extra auxiliary arrays actually, and it is very practical. So, that means the complexity analysis is really good. The algorithm of quicksort goes like this. It tries to find a pivotal element. Unlike your merge sort, the division is not exact half, but rather what it tries to do is it tries to find a element which is called a pivotal element. The characteristic of the pivotal element is that all the numbers to the left hand side will be less than or equal to your pivotal element, and all the numbers on the right hand side is going to be greater than or equal to your pivotal element. So, the pivotal element is trying to partition your array into sub array. So, the partition is a variable one, right. So, this is the algorithm for partitioning the array. So, you are taking an array whose index goes from P to Q. So, x equal to a of p, you are setting a pointer, then you starts comparing your a of j that is your second elements onwards with respect to x, and based on that you perform the increment, then you are exchanging it, and then you are exchanging this with the first element to give the pivotal element. Let me demonstrate this with a numerical example, so that you will understand it better. Then we will come back to this algorithm, then it will make more sense. You take this particular example. So, as per the algorithm, pointers I and j are set to 6 and 10. That is, I now points to the first element of the array and j points to the second element of the array. So, what we are trying to see is that we are ensuring that your a of I is less than or equal to a of j. Whenever this condition is not there, we are simply exchanging it, and finally we are making a grand exchange, so that the pivotal element is in the proper position, so that that particular element need not have to be sorted. So, you can see very well. Six is less than 13, no problem, but now you observe here 6 is greater than 5. So, I am performing the first exchange. So, 5 comes to the position of 10 and 10 goes to the position of 5, and my I is incremented and it is now pointing to 5. So, now I have to start comparing 5 with the remaining elements. Whenever that condition is not there, it has to be swapped. 5 is less than 8, there is no problem. Next comes the problem, because 3 is smaller than 5. You see, one exchange is taking place. Now, I is incremented. Again you see, problem is that because 2 is lesser than 3, so a swap. So, now you can see very well, after that your scope of your I becomes larger. So, now you are comparing the first element with your I. So, now you can see very well, your 6 is greater than 2, therefore, you are making a swapping of what is being pointed by I with the first element. Now, 6 becomes your pivotal element. So, you can compare and contrast this with your earlier algorithms. In binary search, merge sort, etc., the partitioning is almost equal. So, that means always you try to ensure that both the halves share the same numbers, but whereas here it is not so. For example, 6 is a pivotal element, that means 6 is in its correct position of the output, right. But you have the first subarray having only 3 numbers, but whereas the right subarray have 4 numbers. Again I will try to re-demonstrate this. So, you can see okay. See your main program now. You can easily condense whatever you have seen into a small algorithm now. Quick sort, A comma P comma R. So, your partitioning is coming into picture. So, P points to your low, R points to your high. You are partitioning that to get your pivotal element Q. Then quicksort becomes A to P, A comma P comma Q minus 1 and A Q minus 1 comma R. So, let us see about the analysis part. Assume that all the input elements are distinct. So, you can see the worst case of quicksort will become like this. Worst case means assume that your input is reverse sorted or sorted. Here the partitioning is so bad in the sense that in the left hand side you have only 0 element and all the elements are coming to the right hand side. Your equation will look something like T of n equal to T of 0 plus T of n minus 1, and then the remaining processing is theta of n. So, you can see very well if you solve this like we have seen in the last session, T n equal to T n minus 1 plus 1, you can see very well it comes to theta of n square. So, this is the worst case. The worst case complexity analysis of quicksort is theta of n square. You can also use the iteration method. So, you can see like that you will generate the tree, then you have to take a count of everything. It is going to be theta of n square. Then you will see there are n, height of this tree is n. So, it becomes theta of n plus theta of n square. So, approximately you can see the worst case analysis is theta of n square. This is iteration method. Suppose if you assume that the partition is almost equal, that is every half has got the same number of elements, in that case your T of n will become equal to 2 T n by 2 plus theta of n. Again you can see very well this is almost similar to your merge sort only. So, that means your complexity analysis is going to be theta of n log n. So, this is how you have to analyze the complexity of quicksort algorithms. So, you have to refer with respect to your pivotal element only. So, what is the worst case? Suppose if you have 10 numbers, your pivotal element happens to be the first element of that particular array. So, that means your left hand side will not have any elements at all. So, that is T of 0 and all the things are in the right hand side except this one. So, that is your T of n minus 1. So, this represents the worst case. So, whenever you encounter this sort of scenario, you can see very well the worst case analysis is theta of n square, which is similar to your insertion sort or any other sort. So, what is the interpretation of this? The interpretation is that in worst case quicksort performs like any other sort only. So, in the average or the best case, where if your assumption is your subtree has got an exact half, then you can see that your analysis leads to something like an logarithmic algorithms. So, in short, in average case and best case the quicksort algorithm performs better. So, this can be checked out in the posteriori analysis also. So, whatever analysis that we have seen are called a priori analysis. A priori means you are doing your analysis before the code is being written, and posteriori analysis means you can write your code and after that you can perform your analysis. So, there is something called benchmark. Benchmark contains millions of data. So, what people software programmers will do is that they will write the programs and they will give the benchmark data, and then they will actually measure the time your program takes, and based on that lot of statistical tests can be applied and the results can be checked with your theoretical analysis, and most of the experimental study proves that quicksort algorithm performs in a better manner only. In short, whatever things that we have seen today are related to divide and conquer only. Suppose what will happen if situation is like this: 10 elements I am having, left hand side 1 element is going, right hand side 9 elements. In iteration method you can make lot of experimentation like this. So, you can see very well. So, you can see this is what your complexity analysis is. So, in other words, these are the ways in which you have to perform the analysis for the given algorithms. And another note I want to add is that Master's theorem is very handy for these sort of divide and conquer algorithms, because you can see very well the equation that we are getting, that is T n equal to 2 T n by 2 plus some constant. You can see very well it directly fits into your what you say the Master's theorem template. So, that means by referring to the Master's theorem, majority of the applications can be solved in an effective manner. So, in short, I would like to summarize the gems of today's discussion. The first thing is, as a student, as a programmer, you need to know whether the problem comes under this particular category. So, that means you have to make an analysis whether the parallelization is possible or not. If parallelization is possible, then the divide and conquer strategy is very effective one. And if the problem is not decomposable in nature, then you can't apply this particular technique at all. So, that means you have to search for some other ways of solving these sort of problems. And if you find that your problem is solvable, then you will start dividing or partitioning the problems. So, in this context only your principles of divide and conquer or its variation is coming into picture. Now, the question becomes, is the partition is going to be exactly half, or is it going to be some other parameter like constants or variable. Suppose if you say that it need not have to be half, it can be 1 or it can be a constant or it can be a variable, then we land into a principle called what you say divide and conquer with the variations, decrease and conquer. And if you say that the problem is not solvable in the traditional manner and it requires some other transformation and other things, then you land into another variation called transform and conquer. Whatever be the case, finally all the things comes under one philosophy called top down approach. So, that means what we are trying to say is that we take the problem, we try to divide the problem into lots of sub problems, then we solve the sub problems, and then we are trying to combine all the sub problems to give the resultant solutions. So, the logic is very simple. All the algorithms will have the same main algorithm, where you are trying to write some logic for partitioning, and the difference of the problems will lies only in the sub programs or procedures, where you are writing procedures that are specifically to that particular problems. And most of the case your analysis will become something like T of n equal to T of n by 2 or something, and depending on the nature you can use any one of the algorithm that we discussed in the last review to find the complexity analysis of the given algorithms. So, it is time for interaction now. I think we can stop our discussion. Thank you very much.